He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. It is Friday. I'm Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. It is slightly after 6 p.m. Eastern Time, ladies and gentlemen. Your federal government has officially closed. Matter of fact, it closed about an hour ago, if not earlier. A government shutdown. Happens every weekend. There's no panic in the streets. The essential personnel are still working. Military still operating. FBI still out there, and so forth and so on. So I just want you to know the government has shut down. How do I know? Well, try calling the EPA right now. Try calling your member of Congress right now. Try calling anybody in the federal government right now. It's closed. So every Friday, hosts seem to have to give names to Fridays. I think I'll give a name to Friday, Mr. Producer. Government Shutdown Friday. Do you like that? It works. Because it always does. And I feel great. You know, Barack Obama's at Bingham University in New York today, flapping his lips, going on and on and on. These speeches are really amazing for their near illiteracy and incomprehension and incoherence. I want you to listen to some of this. You ready? Cut one, go.
But unfortunately, we've got a policy.
All right, that's good. Cut two, go.
A lot of people think.
All right. Cut three, go.
But we don't have.
Cut four, go.
And in some cases.
Cut five, go.
This is probably controversial.
Cut six, go.
Yeah,
seven, go. All right, that's enough. All right. I've got all these clips here of Obama today. There's only one I care about. Oh, yes, he's rambling on and on and on, and he's sounding increasingly, well, what? Like a homeless guy. I'll give you an example. Let's go to cut four, Mr. Producer. Go.
And in some cases, we've actually been criticized that it's a socialist plot that's restricting your freedom for us to encourage energy-efficient light bulbs, for example. I never understood that, but you hear those arguments. I mean, you can go on the web.
Stop. This guy goes on the Internet, reads criticism of himself. I'm told that this program, among others, is transcribed. Did somebody say that encouraging energy-efficient light bulbs is a socialist plot? No. We didn't say it's a socialist plot. We said it's an out-of-control federal government. And they don't encourage energy-efficient light bulbs. They ban certain types of light bulbs, which means they close certain types of companies, and they mandate other kinds of light bulbs, which means they create cronies. He never understood that, he said. That's obvious. But you hear those arguments. Go ahead.
And people be decrying how simple stuff that we're doing, like trying to set up regulations to make appliances more energy efficient, which saves consumers money and is good for our environment, is somehow restricting America's liberty and violates the Constitution.
Really? Isn't that great? What about the other 3,000 laws that your administration put out last year? Do you even know what they are, President Obama? Can you name 200 of them? No. You see, they're in our faces all the time. It sounds so passive. It sounds so comforting even. Oh, we're trying to do more energy-efficient appliances and, clean air, stuff like that. They're shutting down industries. They're destroying assembly lines. They're imposing enormous costs based on phony science, and they have no constitutional authority to do it. Now, if you're in one of these industries, either as an employee or an employer or an investor, and your family is adversely affected by this, it's not so funny, is it? No, it's not so funny at all. I want to tell you about the real Obama. I want you to tell you what Obama has created in this country. I want to tell you what fundamental transformation is like. Thanks to our friends at Zero Hedge, which is a great website, citing a fellow Michael Snyder of the Economic Collapse blog. Here's 33 shocking facts which show how badly the U.S. economy has tanked since Obama became president. 33, and we will link to this. When Obama entered the White House, 60.6% of working-age Americans had a job. Today, 58.7%. Since Obama's been president, 7 out of every 8 jobs, 7 out of every 8 created, quote-unquote, is part-time. The number of full-time workers in the United States is still nearly 6 million below the old record that was set back in 2007. An astounding 53% of all American employees now make less than $30,000 a year. 40% of all workers in the United States actually make less than what a full-time minimum wage worker made back in 1968. When the Obama era began, the average duration of unemployment in this country was 19.8 weeks. Today it's 36.6 weeks. Oh, Obama for the middle class. Obama for the working man. I'm just starting. During the first 4 years of Obama, the number of Americans not in the labor force soared by an astounding 8,332,000. That far exceeds any previous 4-year total in American history. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the middle class is taking home a smaller share of the overall income pie than ever before recorded under the Obama economy. When Obama was elected, the home ownership rate in the United States was 67.5%. Today it's 65%, the lowest it has been in 18 years. When Obama entered the White House, the mortgage delinquency rate was 7.85%. Today it's 9.72%. In 2008, the U.S. trade deficit with China was $268 billion. Last year, it was $315 billion. When Obama first became president, 12.5 million Americans had manufacturing jobs. Today, it's down to 11.9 million Americans. Our manufacturing industries are dying. And with Obamacare, it'll even be worse. Number 13. Median household income in America has fallen for 4 consecutive years. Overall, it has declined by over $4,000 during that time span. The poverty rate has shot up to 16.1%. That's actually higher than when the war on poverty began in 1965. During Obama's first term, the number of Americans on food stamps increased by an average of about 11,000 per day. When Obama entered the White House, there were about 32 million Americans on food stamps. Today, more than 47 million. At this point, more than 1 million public school students in the United States are homeless. This is the first time that has ever happened in American history. That number has risen by 57% since the 2006-2007 school year. When Obama took office, the average price of a gallon of regular gasoline was $1.85. Today, it's $3.53. Number 19. Electricity bills in the U.S. have risen faster than the overall rate of inflation for 5 years in a row. Healthcare costs have risen by 29% since Obama became president, and Obamacare is going to make that even worse. The United States has fallen in the global economic competitiveness rankings compiled by the World Economic Forum for 4 years in a row. According to economist Tim Kaine, the following is how the number of startup jobs per 1,000 Americans breaks down by presidential administration. Bush 41, 11.3. Clinton, 11.2. W, 10.8. Obama, 7.8. Number 23. In 2008, that total amount of student loan debt in this country was $440 billion. At this point, it has shot up to about $1 trillion. According to a recent survey, 76% of all Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. During Obama's first term, the number of Americans collecting federal disability insurance rose more than 18%. I don't expect you to memorize it. I do think you're going to get a real feel for how this man is destroying America. The total amount of money that the federal government gives directly to the American people has grown by 32%, one-third, since Obama became president. According to the Survey of Income and Program Participation conducted by the U.S. Census, well over 100 million Americans are enrolled in at least one welfare program run by the federal government. That means a third of our population is on some welfare program. American households are now receiving more money directly from the federal government than they're paying to the government in taxes. Number 29. Under Obama, the velocity of money, a very important indicator of economic health, that is the movement of money from one enterprise to another, one person to another, one concern to another, has plunged to a post-World War II low. At the end of 2008, the Federal Reserve held $475 billion worth of U.S. Treasury bonds. Today, $2 trillion. When Obama was first elected, the U.S. debt to GDP ratio was under 70%. Today, it's over 100%. During Obama's first term, the federal government accumulated more new debt than it did under the first 42 United States presidents combined. And number 3, the final one, and I could add 100 of these. When you break it down, the amount of new debt accumulated by the U.S. government during Obama's first term comes to approximately $50,500 for every single household in the United States. Are you able to pay your share? And this man runs around the country giving speeches about how he cares for the middle class, runs around the country telling you how you're going to get free contraceptives, runs around the country, tells you how your health care is going to improve. He's a disaster. A complete, unmitigated disaster. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I won't play you his voice, but the president said today the deficit is going down. Notice he didn't say the debt is going down. Well, the deficit is going down. It's half since it was in 2009. Ladies and gentlemen, the deficit going down from $1.4 trillion to $700 billion or $600, that is an accomplishment? What? And he has nothing to do with it? A massive tax increase, a one-time hit? Look what it's done to the economy. The debt has massively exploded under this president. He says we don't have an urgent deficit crisis, he said today. He's delusional. Absolutely delusional. He said the government isn't sharing the wealth. Really? What's the progressive income tax? That's redistribution of wealth. I mean, he brought up Jim Crow and slavery today. There is no Jim Crow and slavery today. I think we've also seen as a legacy of discrimination, he said. Institutional barriers for success. the institutional barriers for success, incredibly, include him. More damage is being done in our poorest communities. More damage is being done in minority communities. And by the way, every community. By this president's ideology and the implementation of that ideology through his policies that are possibly imaginable. Freedom under our Constitution. Capitalism under our economic system are under attack. And yet these are the way a people progress. What do we do when a president's this delusional? What do we do when a president is driven by an ideological religion like this? When experience doesn't matter, when evidence doesn't matter, when real world events don't matter. Do you know how easy it is to expose what this man is and is doing to this nation? And yet the opposition party is incapable of it? It's incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. He says the highest priority of Washington is to make sure everyone gets a fair shake. What in the world does that even mean? He runs around, throws these platitudes out. He's responsible for the state of high unemployment in this country. He's responsible for the housing market that's so disastrous in this country. He's responsible for the massive yearly deficits in this country. He's responsible for incredible illegal immigration in this country. He's responsible for all of it. And you want to know why? Because he won't lift a finger to stop it. Quite the contrary. He lifts an iron fist to promote it. Running around the country. If I didn't tell you what he said today, you wouldn't know. Because nobody's even paying attention to him anymore. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a continuing resolution coming. Boehner's already surrendered. We have a debt ceiling coming. Oh, we're going to take the grandstand. Well, we'll see about that, won't we? I'll be right back.
In a world of pathetic liberal potholes, he's a truck full of hot constitutional asphalt. Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Mark Levin, author of numerous New York Times best-selling books, Men in Black, Liberty and Tyranny, and Ameritopia. Now comes the Liberty Amendments.
This is a book intended to find a course, a way to address all that's going on around us.
The Liberty Amendments, new from Mark Levin.
When you read this book, The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic, it gives you hope. It gives you some inspiration, and we need it. And that's why I wrote it.
Sean Hannity.
I would describe this as a roadmap for the people in this country, those that say, what can I do? How can we deal with this? It's a roadmap to liberty, a roadmap to return to self-government, a roadmap to reestablish founding principles and restore the constitutional republic we inherited. I highly recommend it.
This year's must-read.
This book combines our heritage, the framers at the Constitutional Convention, the framers at the state conventions, who are always overlooked, and applies it to our current circumstance.
Mark Levin's The Liberty Amendments, now on sale everywhere.
And you know, folks, I've been doing a lot of interviews for the book with local hosts, as I've been telling you. I'll be doing a lot more next week. Great hosts. But I'll tell you what troubles me. All the naysayers. I went on one of my favorite websites, and somebody comments, opens a convention nonetheless, and once it's open, the libs will take it over. The states appoint the delegates. The libs can't take it over, quote unquote. People are talking about Obama's groups taking it over. They've taken over the country. Otherwise, none of this is even necessary. There's no one in Washington that I trust, another comment, to modify the Constitution. To modify the Constitution? Do you realize the Constitution has been eviscerated? We're not talking about modifying the principles in the Constitution. We're talking about reasserting them, reviving them. I really wish people would read the book before they just knee-jerk all over the place, because I'll tell you what, we're not going to get anywhere with comments like this. Here's another one. Let's see. Why would anyone believe the idiots that don't follow the current Constitution would follow the new amendments? This person hasn't read it either. Every amendment moves ultimate decision-making authority out of the hands of the current ruling class, the professional, entrenched politicians in Washington. So other people are going to be making these decisions, not them. It's not a question of them following it. It's a question of other people making decisions. So I'm here to answer all these questions. And I'm going to do as many of this and as often as I can, as much of this, because we've got to embrace this, or something like it, or it will be over. And again, it's going to take a while to promote it, and I just hope by the way, this weekend, if you want to say, oh, this can't be done, we can't do anything, watch a patriotic movie. Watch Patton. Watch Tora, Tora, Tora. Watch The Patriot. Watch numerous movies. Better yet, visit a Civil War site. Visit Independence Hall. Visit, if you're near any of these places or you're of the mind to do it, visit these places and see what is possible. Or better yet, The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic, my book. You'll read it, and I think you'll come away saying, yeah, this is doable, and it is possible. And the fear-mongering is absolutely wrong. I didn't invent this idea, folks. I'm passing it along to you from the Constitutional Convention. I'm passing it along to you in making the case that George Mason made, making the case in the Federalist Papers that James Madison and, yes, even Alexander Hamilton made in support of this process. So people are making comments, negative, naysayers, without even reading the book or understanding what we're talking about. Just hey, I don't want to open the Constitution up to this. You're not opening the Constitution up to anything. This is a process in the Constitution. It involves the states. We believe in federalism. It doesn't even involve the governors or the courts in the states, strictly the state legislatures. And even then, what they propose has to be ratified by the several states, 3/4 of them. So there's plenty of barriers and breakers and governors, and I don't mean it in terms of politics, governors in terms of processes, in place. And they're going to be the obstacle for those of us who want to promote this. The left will take it over. No, they won't. The left is perfectly happy with what's going on in this country. They've already taken over the Constitution, and they've all but destroyed it. If you don't believe that, then this book's not for you. If you believe everything's hunky-dory, then that's fine. If you revere the Constitution, if you revere our history, if you revere the framers, then you're with me and I'm with you. I just wanted to make that clear after hearing that commercial. Now let's continue here. Obama's career as president, which is a disaster for the nation. Weekly Standard. Jeffrey Anderson. Incomes have dropped twice as much during the so-called recovery as during the recession. New estimates derived from the Census Bureau's current population survey indicate that the real inflation-adjusted median annual household income in America has fallen by 4.4% during the so-called Obama recovery after having fallen by 1.8% during the Bush recession. That is incredible. None of this is being reported by the Praetorian Guard media. None of it. Investors Business Daily, John Merline, on Obamacare and pre-Obamacare. Do you know that since 2009, when Obama was elected, or became president, I should say, health care premiums have climbed almost $3,000? Obamacare was passed in 2010. Didn't the man say that premiums would be cut by $2,500 in his first term? Yes, he did. So that's only about a $5,500 swing. And he runs around talking about how he's for the middle class, the little guy. He's destroying the middle class and the little guy. There's simply no question about it. And now I want to talk briefly to you young folks out there. There's this word millennial. I mean, honestly, I know what is meant by it. I just don't use it. So I just want to talk to you young folks out there. Not against using it, but it's not part of my vocabulary. I want you to listen to this because you're being played, you're being used, you're being abused. Forbes. A fellow writing at Forbes whose name I cannot even pronounce, but may not even be a fellow, but a good writer and a good thinker. This person writes, preventing health insurers from fully accounting for age will not change the reality that, in general, the older you are, the greater your medical expenses, 6 times greater when you compare 64-year-olds to 18-year-olds. These are costs that someone has to and will pay. If insurers can't charge those older folks according to their risk, they have to overcharge those younger folks to make up the cost. In California, for example, once the new health law's various rate restrictions and other provisions kick in, 25-year-old non-smoking men will see their premiums at least double. You got that, 25-year-olds and thereabouts? As slogans go, let's fleece our children and grandchildren is not likely to draw much support, so proponents of the health law are trying to make their scheme palatable by arguing it actually benefits the younger generation. And I'm telling young folks out there, this is the sleaze, the demagoguery, and so forth of the left in the Obama administration. Today's young people will be tomorrow's old people, says Matthew whatever of Slate. So while this arrangement may not benefit the young now, it eventually will do so. But it's of no benefit to anyone, folks, young or old, to be forced into a scheme in which others dictate how he should arrange for his medical expenses. What's in a young person's interest is to be free to decide that for himself in the context of his other life priorities. Consider that 25-year-old non-smoking male in California I just talked about. Let's focus on him, and let's call him Brian. Brian is a freelance web developer committed to gaining enough experience and saving enough money to one day start his own company. Every dollar Brian can save right now brings him one step closer to starting and growing his business. And in a truly free market, Brian would be able to choose a health insurance policy that best aligns with his goal. Could, for example, buy a policy that's priced to reflect the real risk that he'll get sick, just as he buys car insurance priced according to the risk of of having an accident. Since Brian is young and healthy, his premiums would be relatively low, just as safe drivers' premiums are low, allowing him to put more of his income toward his startup. Now, Brian knows that when he's older and in a higher risk category, health insurers may charge him higher premiums, but that's a fact of life he's willing to face. Even though Brian judges this to be the best way to manage his medical expenses, under the health law, it's illegal for insurers to offer him a policy geared to his actual risk and desire. Instead, per government mandate, a portion of his income A portion of what he earns and intends to use to build his life is channeled into the pockets of others. And as a result of this, and the many other wealth redistribution provisions in health law, Brian's goals are impeded. Maybe it takes him much longer to start the business he's always wanted. When he finally does, maybe his venture is stunted by a lack of cash to put back into the business. Or maybe Brian must scale back or give up entirely his lifelong goal because by the time he can finance the startup, he has a family and decides he can't afford to take such a risk. Whatever the case, when Brian is 60, he might get a few dollars from the younger generation if they haven't yet awakened to the injustice of the scheme, or if the whole scheme hasn't already crashed. Meanwhile, Brian will have paid a high price, having been denied throughout the course of his life the right to decide how best to use his earnings and what health care package to choose. Is it any wonder that the health law's redistribution schemes had to be forced on people by law? Nobody would choose to spread their own money this way. The health law's age-related rate restriction milks the hard-earned income of young people, those just starting out in life, for the sake of older people, sacrificing in the process a young person's own goals and dreams. If they were honest, supporters of the law would admit this openly. And if they were honest, and Obama was honest, he wouldn't step foot on a single college campus. Because nobody is doing more to destroy the future and the opportunities and the potential wealth of the young people in this country than Barack Hussein Milhouse Obama. Nobody. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I've said it for years. Barack Obama is a child abuser. And I don't mean that physically, obviously. I mean it with respect to his policies. He's destroying what undergirds this society so that future generations don't have a chance. Which is why Hillsdale College is so important, by the way. You all know by now I'm a huge fan of Hillsdale College. One of my dearest friends, Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, well, it's under his leadership that Hillsdale is one of the most important and best colleges in America. Hillsdale College is very difficult to get into, and they're always flooded with applications from the best and the brightest high school students from across the nation who want to receive a life-changing education. If you know of a stellar, honorable, proud American high school student, you owe it to him or her to tell them about Hillsdale College. Go to levinforhillsdale.com, that's Levin for Hillsdale.com right now to order a free information and admissions packet. You can also give out the website to the student to order the packet and to learn more about what it means to pursue truth and defend liberty. That's levinforhillsdale.com. Now, the prayer placed inside the 1853 cornerstone of Central Hall on campus reflects Hillsdale's continuing commitment. It says this, quote, "May earth be better and heaven be richer because of the life and labor of Hillsdale College," unquote. Go to levinforhillsdale.com.
Mark Levin.
From a friend of mine. Today, a prominent Virginia Tea Party activist told me there's nothing in the Fifth Amendment that supports what you're advocating. No, there's nothing in the Fifth Amendment that supports what I'm advocating. It's in Article 5, not the Fifth Amendment. I am extremely hopeful that people will read what I'm talking about because I lay it out literally, chapter and verse, before they make statements like this. Why are we trying to shoot ourselves in the foot? This has nothing to do with the Fifth Amendment. It's in Article 5. Now, we have nothing to be afraid of by embracing the Constitution. We have nothing to be afraid of by embracing federalism in the 10th Amendment. Look at what's happening to our country. Look at the power that the federal government wields over us. If you really sit back and think about it, Obama's giving speeches just joking about all we're trying to do, is encourage you. They don't encourage anything. They dictate, but encourage you to get, energy-efficient light bulbs and this and that. Ladies and gentlemen, are we mature adults? Can we pick our own light bulbs? Can we pick our own toilet paper? Do we know how to function as human beings in this country? Obama doesn't even realize how pathetic his comment is. All we're trying to do is encourage you to pick what? Did Obama have a better upbringing than the rest of us? Was he born with an extra 50 IQ? I mean, does he know better what kind of light bulbs you should have than you should have? Then you can decide for yourselves. Michelle Obama, suddenly she became a nutritionist. Is she better able to decide what your children should eat than you? I mean, come on, folks. Well, there's some kind of socialist stuff? When in the hell has the President of the United States, where is this written? That he has the power, I don't care how earnest he may be, and this president is not, to pick the devices that we have in our homes and the food that we have in our refrigerators and the meals that we feed our families. The President of the United States? What the hell is this? He's supposed to run a federal government with limited, specified powers, and the framers just figured that the American people would be able to feed themselves, wipe themselves, and take care of themselves. Were the framers wrong? I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, my friends. Mark Levin here. This is Hour 2. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Very, very interesting what's going on out there. David Axelrod is the, may I say, German-looking advisor to Barack Obama. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But there he was on MSLSD today. He was upset with Senator Tom Coburn. Well, what did Tom Coburn have to say the other day? In part, at the town hall meeting in Muskogee. We played a little yesterday. Let me play it again to set this up with David Axelrod, okay? Senator Tom Coburn, cut 12. He's talking about the Liberty Amendments, my book. Go.
And we need to change it. And that's why I said the pretty outlandish statement is that I'm afraid not to have a constitutional convention. I don't think we have time to wait. And I think Mark Levin has done a great service to this country by raising those issues. Now, he's pretty harsh sometimes, but the fact is we have real problems and they need real solutions. And that's one, and nobody else is offering anything that comes close to it.
And I am harsh sometimes, but to know me is to love me. And I have reason to be harsh sometimes. Nobody's offering anything that's come close to it. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody's offering anything. Nothing. What else did he say? Cut 13 in response to a question. Go.
I watched Mark Levin the other night on Hannity, and he brought up there's only two ways to resolve what we got going on in this country. One of them's going to be real bloody. And he said the other one is a state convention, which you just mentioned. Is there any conversation going on among the states? And as a individual, What do we need to do to get that started? Because he also made the point it's going to take a while to get it done.
It is. Well, first of all, that wouldn't go through me. That would come through your state legislature. And so what do you need to do is you need to, first of all, I would recommend you read that book and have a good understanding of the case to be made so you can defend your position. Number two is you have to lobby your state legislators because they're the ones that have to make that decision. You know, I don't agree with everything in his book, but I certainly agree with his attempt at a solution where we find neither political party tends to have the courage to stand up and do the things it's supposed to do.
And then finally, Senator Coburn said this, cut 14, go.
You know, it's kind of like the conversation I have with Jim DeMint, the head of Heritage, which is the brainchild behind all this, is I'd love for there to be 60 conservatives in the Senate.
To defund Obamacare.
How many of you all think that's a realistic expectation that that's going to happen in my lifetime? It isn't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. So the point is we ought to go with the Mark Levin recommendation and take back our power.
And what he says is consistent with what Dwight Eisenhower said 50 years ago. It's consistent with what Ronald Reagan said in 1987. And most importantly, it's consistent with what the framers of the Constitution did in 1787 in Philadelphia and what the state ratifying conventions did thereafter. Folks, why wouldn't we turn to the Constitution to reclaim what is ours? To breathe life back into what is now a dormant, eviscerated Constitution. We're not going to elect 60 conservatives to the Senate. So when a former McCain hack on MSLSD says we just need to elect more Republicans, we're not talking about that. We're not going to elect 60 conservatives to the Senate. We never have. The Republicans have 27 state legislatures right now. Even Kasich in Ohio is talking about a convention. Now, these guys are saying constitutional convention. It is not a constitutional convention. I'll continue to explain this over again and over again. But let's put that point aside just for now. Because it's becoming increasingly obvious that there's no other recourse. And it's becoming increasingly obvious that this is the recourse provided to us by our forefathers. And so I fully expect most of the ruling class, the so-called professional career politicians, the governing masterminds is what I call them throughout my book, to be hostile. I fully expect their scribes and cheerleaders to be hostile, their disciples to be hostile, and you're going to see this. You're going to see this with Republicans and Democrats. You're going to see it with the Bush folks and the McCain folks and the rhinos and all the rest. The beauty of what the framers handed us, though, is that we bypass all of them. We bypass all the consultants in Washington, all the special interests in Washington. We bypass all the activists in Congress, a lawless president, a massive bureaucracy, the Supreme Court. We bypass them all. And we don't replace it with anarchy or majoritarianism or pluralism or populism or anything of the kind. We follow the Constitution. The state legislatures, not even the governors, not even the state courts, the state legislatures. And it will take time. But we should be positive about this process that was bequeathed to us. It's a legacy from the Constitutional Convention itself to address exactly this sort of circumstance, where you have a lawless president trying to grab more and more power, where you have an outrageous Congress. On the one hand, it's impotent. On the other hand, it passes these massive bills, and it also delegates lawmaking power to the executive branch by creating these departments and agencies of which it has no constitutional authority to do. And then you have a Supreme Court that's decided that it's going to define everything from marriage to private property to this, that, and the other. Why? Because 5 people say so? Because one justice in a 5-4 decision swings one way or the other? These are nothing more than flesh and blood human beings. Why shouldn't more of us have a say in the future of our country? This isn't radical. What's radical is what's being done to our country. This isn't radical at all, unless you think the framers were radical in the sense that they wanted to create an all-powerful federal government, but they didn't. We cannot define ourselves and our arguments by our opponents' characterizations. We cannot do it. We should define ourselves and our policies with the truth. With the truth. And the naysayers out there and all the rest, just get out of the way, would you? Please. If you're not going to help us restore the republic, at a minimum, get out of the way. And stop pretending to be constitutionalists and federalists. Besides, you don't have any answer. None. None whatsoever. And so what I notice is happening in the French Republican ranks in Washington is they're downplaying the seriousness of what's going on in this nation. They're becoming liberals. Let me ask you a couple of questions. When the trustees of the Social Security system and the Medicare system, when they say that the programs are unsustainable, are they lying? When the General Accountability Office says that the financial state of the nation, through different models and formula that they've used, is unsustainable, dangerously so, is that government agency lying too? I mean, I'm looking at what these government agencies and government officials are saying. How do you downplay this stuff? You downplay it because you don't want to deal with it. And you downplay it because you don't want to accept what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we are unmoored from our Constitution. I don't care how many left-wingers come back and say, hey, what do you oppose the FDA? I'll give you an example with the FDA right now. A friend of mine needs a drug. This just happened today. Where I read on Fox News 2 days ago, it's gone through all the trials. It's been an exceptionally effective drug. And my friend needs it now. But he can't get it. Because despite all the private sector tests, despite the write-up in the New England Journal of Medicine, all the peer review and so forth, the FDA is sitting on it. It's sitting on it. So, they can bring up whatever they want. Also, the point I made the other day needs, I think, to be reiterated. We're not talking even about that, are we? We're talking about the 3,000 laws they pass every year, many with criminal penalties, that even they can't name. They can't name 100 of them. We're talking about abusing the Constitution's Commerce Clause to shut down power plants, to shut down coal mines, to undo dams, to remake the nation, destroy the nation. I was thinking about this earlier today. You realize we couldn't build the Hoover Dam today because of all the lawsuits? They might find some fungus under a leaf that they never saw before, so all of a sudden it's an endangered whatever, or a habitat for whatever. Or some fish that might not be able to flow downstream and lay its eggs, be eaten by a bear or something. I don't think we could build these projects. That's why when Obama said shovel-ready jobs, he didn't mean a damn word of it. Everywhere you turn. This Kathleen Sebelius, a.k.a. Supercilious, was in Philadelphia yesterday. Let's get Cut 10 ready. She's in charge of implementing Obamacare, and she has been an ideologue and a disaster. A real dummy. And listen to how she combines comprehensive immigration with the Obamacare enrollment. Hat tip CNS News, Cut 10, go.
Well, the bill is crafted in such a way that those who are undocumented will not.
Hold on a second. Can you is that her real voice? Can you rewind this? Does every female in this administration? Well, I better not say it. Go ahead. Cut 10. Go.
Well, the bill is crafted in such a way that those who are undocumented will not have access to the tax credits or shopping in the marketplace.
The health insurance
that
market
has been limited, which is frankly why another very keen reason why we need comprehensive immigration reform.
Wait a minute. Whoa. So another reason we need comprehensive immigration reform, ladies and gentlemen, is so undocumented aliens, a.k.a. illegal aliens, can get into the healthcare system, can be legalized and on a pathway to citizenship. So in other words, we need illegal aliens to stop being illegal so they can sign up for Obamacare. What a crazy damn administration this is, boy. Be fine except for the fact they're destroying my country. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I haven't forgotten Axelrod. Just bear with me. By the way, tomorrow, Saturday. It's finally here. 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Barnes & Noble. I will be signing. It's really my last open signing. I'll be signing at the Reagan Library in September, but that's sold out. Barnes & Noble, Tyson's Corner, Virginia. If you're interested, we'd love to have you. Thousands of us there to make a statement. It's a great mall, too, with great parking, great food. I know. I go there from time to time. So I hope to see you there. Tyson's Corner, Virginia, and we'll be doing it with my buddies at WMAL Radio, which is my home station. So WMAL Radio, and I will be there signing, and I don't stop till I have met each of you and signed every book, however long it takes. And you're going to meet a lot of cool people in line. It happens every time. And I don't do a lot of book signings. Do 3 or 4, and that's it. I don't do a book tour. And those of you who can't come, who are interested in a signed book, you can go to Premier Collectibles. I'll be talking more about that next week. I think they're about half sold out. So if that's something you're interested in, you need to hustle over there over the weekend. But it's up to you. Now, I checked with my publisher today. We'll get the Axelrod. He can wait, that creep. Every major bookstore chain, every large store like a Costco or a Sam's or a BJ's or a Walmart or a Sam's, Target, they are fully stocked, although they're going quickly. Your local independent bookstore, fully stocked. If you're walking through an airport, picking somebody else and so forth, fully stocked. Barnes & Noble, really the last major, that is large book chain, fully stocked. Books A Million, same thing. If I've left somebody off, it's by absolute accident, and I apologize. When you're out shopping, you're moving around, you're running around, it's your time to grab a copy. We're going to do everything we can to spread the word and get this country back. And I'll be right back.
Levin, speaking to the 4 out of 5 Americans who are literate at 877-381-3811.
Axelrod, one of the other things that Coburn talked about at that town hall meeting the other day was that, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, I don't have the exact words in front of me right now, was that Obama has come pretty close to committing impeachable offenses. And I've said that myself. In my view, he has committed impeachable offenses. If defying court decisions, if defying federal law, if usurping the Constitution, all things that he has done, even Will and Krauthammer admit that, aren't impeachable offenses, then what are impeachable offenses? But that aside, he's not going to be impeached, so that it's just not going to happen. I mean, look who's running the House of Representatives. They're running scared over fighting Obamacare. But here's Axelrod on MSLSD today, one of Obama's many hacks. Hack tip, National Review Online, cut 9, go.
Think about the history of the last 20 years and the escalation of this kind of rhetoric. There are consequences for this country, not just for this president. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be an impeachment. But when what we've seen is a serial attempt to disqualify, by both sides, by the way, but I think more so by the Republicans, disqualify whoever's the president of the United States, not just debate them, not just disagree with them, but render them illegitimate. And that is dangerous for this country. And I was disappointed. Coburn generally has been, he, for example, opposes the move to defund Obamacare because it is an absurd... Stop right there.
President, is this guy ever talking complete sentences? Go ahead.
It is an absurd move. But on this... I think he was way out of bounds, and he speaks to a kind of virus that's infected our politics that really has to be curbed.
So the virus has to be curbed. Our free speech, I guess, our criticism of the imperial president, because when you point out that the president is imperial, when you actually point out what he's doing, the lawlessness, the usurpation, the defiance, the fiats, and all the rest of it, when you point them out, you're dangerous, you see. Not the president's actions. You. That's what Axelrod thinks. That he's a joke. Let's listen to this one more time, not for substance, but for, I don't know, illiteracy, incoherence? Cut 9, go.
Think about the history of the last 20 years and the escalation of this kind of rhetoric. There are consequences for this country, not just for this president. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be an impeachment. But when what we've seen is a serial attempt to disqualify, by both sides, by the way, but I think more so by the Republicans, disqualify whoever's the president of the United States, not just debate them, not just disagree with them, but render them illegitimate. And that is dangerous for this country. And I was disappointed.
That's enough. He's just rambling along like a guy that's, well, I better not say that either. He's disappointed. And, we're all concerned when David Axelrod is disappointed, one of the sleaziest of the bunch. He's disappointed because, the President of the United States, he's just working so hard to do what's right, and Coburn's a good guy, and they've been friends in the past, and for Coburn to point out that Obama has committed potentially impeachable offenses, I mean, that's just dangerous. This has to be curbed. This has to be curbed, ladies and gentlemen. That's what he said. I don't know what he means. All right, we're going to take a call or two or three. Let's see what's going on here as I pull up my call screen and slowly talk and delay this. What the hell's wrong with my call screen? Give me one there, Mr. Call Screener, would you please? All right. Well, there it is. Okay, Mike in New Jersey, the great WABC. Go.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Halfway through your book that is very well written. And I don't know, I'm kind of teetering on a couple of things. But I think you might have left maybe one or two things out that might have been helpful.
Well, let me slow down. This isn't intended to be a grab bag of everything somebody can think of. You understand? These are suggested reforms through amendments, and if there is a convention, I have no doubt that they would be altered and so forth. But go ahead.
Okay, well, I just think that that they should put in there in this Constitution amendment that no congressman shall receive lifetime pay or lifetime benefits or health care. Now, you mentioned the fact
let me say, we're talking about a constitution here, right? Not a bunch of statutes in a code.
Well, yes, we are. Yes.
So in other words, that decision can be made, certainly. But you say lifetime benefits; they can't serve more than 12 years. So what are you talking about?
Well, now don't they receive when Congress?
Yes, but under the amendment we're talking about, they serve 12 years and they're out.
With no lifetime benefits or no...
Well, if they get a pension, that really doesn't bother me. You really think that's going to affect something?
Well, I think it would. I think it would...
Country's going to hell. The spending's out of control. We need people there who are going to take care of it. And you're saying, well, let's deny them pensions. We're talking about 12 years.
Well, okay, that's a good point.
What's your next one?
No bill shall be passed that's no more than 250 pages. In other words,
well, what if it needs to be 260 pages? Again, this is micromanagement of the sort that the framers would never get involved in, and I'm not going to get involved in. My attitude is you need to set up a system where decision-making is put in the hands of people who can help bring some sanity to this process. What I did there is I said no bill can be finally adopted that hasn't been engrossed, or in other words, made public and stayed public for 30 days, and that bill has to be voted on as is. If hold on now, I just want to say, and what I also include in there is other firewalls. For instance, 3/5 of the states can override a federal statute. 3/5 of the states can override a federal regulation of $100 million or more. I mean, if you want to go into it, can't be more than 250 pages. What about the font? What if they use A4 font, which is tiny print where you need, special glasses to read, and then it's 250 pages long? What if they stop using paper and they start putting it on computers and digitizing it? I mean, the Constitution shouldn't be treated as a statute. It should be treated with the reverence that it deserves.
Understood. Okay, I really.
But I'm glad you're reading it. Do you find it interesting?
Absolutely, and I can't wait to get to the end and then get this process started, because we are in a mess, and I don't know if we're ever going to be able to fix it, Mark. I really.
Well, you're right. You're right.
I got.
Well, let me ask you this.
What's that?
Do you find the book flows? In other words, there's a lot of history in there, but I've tried to write it so that at least it flows from chapter to chapter.
Yes, and what I like is it's just, I don't know, when I'm reading it, I hear you talking, then I hear, President Abraham Lincoln talk. It's very well written, very well written.
Well, you're very kind. I'll tell you what, Mike, don't hang up. I'm going to send you a signed copy. No, don't go. I'm going to send you a signed copy. Thank you for your call, my friend. I don't mind if people disagree with me. That's fine. That's okay. Really. Let's continue. And you know what's interesting? You folks want to talk about this. I said it yesterday, and when I was talking to a local host this morning, great local host. All great local hosts today. I explained, I don't write a book that has nothing to do with what I do on the radio. In other words, I'm not writing a book. I didn't write a book about, a cookbook or a medical book. It was a very interesting question. He said, well, how do you decide what to write about? I decide to write about, number one, because it's something that motivates and interests me, but number two, it's something that you and I, my beloved audience, that we talk about each day. Current events, the economy, politics, family, culture, social issues, whatever it is. And so my books address these things in the way that I do it behind the microphone. So it's not like a disparate thing. It's one and the same. What we do in radio, what I talk about with you, what I write about, and so forth. So it's not, there he goes, talking about that again. I'm talking about actually what's going on in Washington, Obamacare, the way we're making our laws, the desperate straits we're in, economically and otherwise, and what we're going to do about it. All right, let's take a call. Bob, New York, the great WABC. Go.
Mark, thank you for taking my call. I have been a fan of yours since your first week on the air. I remember listening to Hannity, and then when I heard you, I was Levinitized. And
well, thank you.
You know, people call me a guru on Facebook, and I say, no, I've learned everything I know from Mark Levin, and I think I've turned at least 40 people on to you by now.
Well, you're a good man.
You have shown us a way to finally deal with this lawless president who has been convicted of breaking the law by appellate courts, or federal courts, I should say.
You mean he's been adjudicated as violating the Constitution?
Recess appointments. He was found guilty of that. Nothing happens. Violation of the separation of the War Powers Act. Nothing happens. He didn't get back to Congress within 60 days, and when he did, they said thumbs down. So he does it through Libya and Turkey. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what I want to say to you is, I've been going to bed miserable every morning, waking up miserable, and yelling at my kids for no reason because I've just had no hope until you came out with this book. Now, I can't afford to get it right now until I go back to work in September, but if I can ask you one favor.
No, you don't need to ask me. I'll take care of you.
I want a signed signature because
you're going to get it.
I'm never going to get to meet you, and I would take you out to dinner if I could. I'll drive to.
Well, listen. We have to go to McDonald's together. Although I don't really go there anymore. Bob, I'll tell you what. Don't hang up. I'm sorry you're out of work, and let's get you a signed copy. And thank you very much. Okay, now we don't want to talk about this with every single caller, even though every single caller obviously wants to talk about this. So we're going to break it up ever so slightly, Mr. Call Screener. But those who are there right now, we'll just get to you in a moment. It is Friday, after all. Federal government is shut down. Oh, it is. It's going to be shut down tomorrow. It's going to be shut down Sunday. Central personnel are still there. Military's still ready to swing into action. Federal law enforcement, they're ready. Central personnel's all ready. Federal government shut down. How painful is it? Not at all. You know, odds are you're most productive when you're working from your desk. So leaving just to go to the post office can slow you down. That's why you need Stamps.com. And with Stamps.com, you can buy and print official U.S. postage right from your own computer and printer. Stamps.com will send you a digital scale absolutely free that automatically calculates the exact postage you need for any letter or package, any class of mail, whether you're sending it domestically or internationally. You plug it right into your computer. You'll never waste valuable time going to the post office again. You can do everything right from your desk with Stamps.com. Print the postage you need. Put it on your letter or package. Then just hand it to your mail carrier or stick it in your mailbox, and you're done. I use Stamps.com all the time, and I have for years, which is exactly why I'm trying to encourage you to do the same thing. Right now, use my name, Mark, for this special offer. A no-risk trial plus $110 bonus offer. That's $110, and that includes the digital scale and up to $55 free postage. You're going to get that at the post office? No. You know what you're going to get at the post office? Some really weird smells and ugly looks. So don't wait. Go to Stamps.com. Before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the home page and type in Mark. That's Stamps.com. Enter Mark.
Mark Levin.
Well, the executive producer for CBS News Radio has tweeted. Charlie K. Breaking, CBS David Martin, U.S. Naval Commander orders warships to move closer to Syria to be ready for possible cruise missile strike. Joint Chiefs Chair General Martin Dempsey expected to present options for Syria strike at White House meeting tomorrow. Now, the only way they know this is if this was leaked by the White House. So here's how we'll know if Obama's really going to order strikes against Syria with cruise missiles. First of all, I didn't know we had enough ships in the Navy to do this, but I guess we still do. No thanks to Obama, who is eviscerating our Navy as he eviscerates so much that is important to this country. Here's how we'll know. He'll be playing cards with his buddy, what's-his-face, Love. Reggie Love. What do they play? Spades. Hey, guys, hold my spot. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Then he'll run down to the Situation Room for a photo op, looking earnestly into oblivion. He'll be there with John Kerry, who will have that same stupid look on his face. And the Secretary of Defense, Hagel, well, he's stuck with a stupid look on his face. And then the rest of them, they'll all be in there, Valerie Jarrett and so forth. They'll all be staring. And by the way, like the photo with Osama bin Laden, some of them will be like staring at different directions. Remember that, Mr. Producer? It's like they're supposed to be watching the screen, but the kind of one's looking to the left, one's looking to the right. Anyway, then he'll run back to his card game upstairs. Because, as Reggie Love told us, Obama doesn't like to really watch these things. That's when we'll know this is serious. Also, there'll be a memo written, much like the former Secretary of Defense wrote. I forget him. He was really quite insignificant. Obama said, look, do not take action unless you're absolutely sure that we'll succeed. And they write these memos just in case there's a screw-up so Obama's covered. Remember that one? Yes, so it'll all be worked out. They're going to fire a few cruise missiles. That'll show everybody over there in Syria that we mean business. Now, considering both sides are our enemy, who are we going to be shooting cruise missiles at exactly? This I don't know. So this is CBS reporting, David Martin, so we shall see. It's going to be a big meeting. So it was leaked by the White House because nobody else would know any of this. That they're going to be meeting tomorrow at the White House. I assure you Obama's ticked off. It's going to be a nice day tomorrow in Washington, D.C., and you know what Obama wants to do tomorrow, don't you, Mr. Producer? He wants to play his 7,000th round of golf. By the way, is Obama any good at golf? Is he any good at golf? Do we ever know? What does he shoot? They don't tell us. I tell you, if he was good, they would tell us. But, you know, I can't get that sight out of my mind, that image out of my mind of when he was bowling. Remember that? When he bowled a 36? Or when he threw that baseball the first time? He didn't really throw it. He kind of pushed it. It was embarrassing. And I noticed this golf swing he has, despite all the rounds of golf and no doubt all the advice he was given by Tiger Woods and so forth, doesn't look that good to me. I bet he's a great card player, too. What do you think? All right, we'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Painful. I'm Mark Levin. The number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. This is the Power Hour, the final hour of the program, the final hour of talk radio for the week. So Scott Brown is sitting in for, he's sitting in at 8 p.m. on the Fox News channel. And his opening monologue is, Reagan worked with Tip O'Neill. He'd be called a rhino today. I actually worked in that administration. He would not be called a rhino today. Why is it the rhinos keep talking about Reagan like he's one of theirs? And here's the little secret. Reagan despised Tip O'Neill. But he worked him over. He manipulated him. And when he couldn't get what he wanted from Tip O'Neill, he went directly to the American people over their head. The so-called Blue Dog Democrats, called such at the time, led by Phil Graham, then a Democrat, congressman from Texas. Reagan built an alliance undermining Tip O'Neill, breaking the Democrat Party in the House. Reagan's landslide brought in a Republican majority in the Senate. That's how he worked deals whenever he could. And he was also furious with Tip O'Neill, time and again, for undermining his budget efforts. So, again, the rhinos, the French Republicans, as I call them, they have to rewrite history. I was there. I don't need to read history. I was there for history. I don't know how many more Massachusetts Republican officials, a lot of solid conservatives in Massachusetts who are stuck. They look around themselves and they can't stand their party and they can't stand the Democrats either. But anyway, so Brown's there, he's hawking for Chris Christie and all that. What we need is a Big Ten. I'm so sick of this. No, Senator, what we need is a spine. What we need are principles. What we need are effective communicators. What we need are people who are confident in the future based on the Constitution. That's what we need. Not all of this platitudinal bullcrap. That ain't going to fly. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, Colin Powell goes down to North Carolina. I have to be honest with you folks, I always am. This guy just isn't that bright. I don't know how he got all these big positions. Oh, I know, he's a veteran and a war hero. Fine. I'm not condemning that. I'm praising that. And I'm not even talking about that. But does this guy have some particular knowledge or expertise? No, he doesn't. And he's leaker, man, I'll tell you what. And here is Obama eviscerating the United States military, and Powell endorses him twice. I'm no fan of this guy, period. And no, I don't think he's that bright. There, I said it. But listen to this from the News Observer in Raleigh, North Carolina. Moments after Governor Pat McCrory, a Republican, left the stage, former Secretary of State Colin Powell took aim at North Carolina's new voting law yesterday, saying it hurts the Republican Party, punishes minority voters, and makes it more difficult for everyone to vote. He said, I want to see policies that encourage every American to vote, not make it more difficult to vote. It immediately turns off a voting bloc the Republican Party needs. These kinds of actions do not build on the base. It turns people away. You can say what you like, but there is no voter fraud, Powell said. Listen to this. How can it be widespread and undetected? Oh, yes, that very, very onerous North Carolina law, which limits early voting, which prevents same-day registration, and requires, among other things, a picture voter ID. Now, let me help the general. Well done by youngcons.com, youngcons.com. They listed 24 things you must have for an ID to purchase. Alcohol, 1. 2, cigarettes. 3, opening a bank account. 4, applying for food stamps. 5, applying for any form of welfare. 6, applying for Medicaid and Social Security. 7, applying for unemployment or a job. 8, renting or buying a house, applying for a mortgage. 9, driving, buying or renting a car. 10, getting on an airplane. 11, getting married. 12, buying a gun. 13, adopting a pet. 14, renting a hotel room. 15, applying for a hunting license. 16, applying for a fishing license. 17, buying a cell phone. 18, visiting a casino. 19, picking up a prescription. 20, holding a rally or protest so you can get a permit. 21, donating blood. 22, buy an M-rated video game. 23, purchase nail polish at CVS. 24, purchase certain cold medicines, but not to vote? How absurd that Colin Powell throws in with this demagogic crowd, and he does it a lot. This is the new civil rights movement, photo IDs, you see. It's a real turnoff, you know. People are not going to join the Republican Party for such a reason. Julian Bond, boy, did he turn out to be a hate monger. North Carolina has become the new Mississippi over this voting stuff. Is there something going on in Mississippi today that I'm missing? Did Mississippi do something today? No, Mississippi didn't do anything today. Living in the past and can't control it. I want to answer Colin Powell. And I've raised this before, and I need to raise it again on this issue because apparently it's not going to go away for a while. What's all this fraud when it goes undetected? I mean, how can that possibly be? Well, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit Judge Richard Posner addressed this in 2008 in a case called Crawford versus Marion County Election Board. A reminder to those of you who heard me mention this before, but it's worth repeating, I think, because Colin Powell didn't hear it. He explained we're dealing with, quote, the form of voting fraud in which a person shows up at the polls claiming to be someone else, someone who has left the district or died too recently to have been removed from the list of registered voters, or someone who has not voted yet on Election Day. Without requiring a photo ID, there's little, if any, chance of preventing this kind of fraud. In other words, hey, how can you prove fraud? Well, how do you prove fraud if you can't keep track of the voter? And the judge said without requiring a photo ID, there's little, if any, chance of preventing this kind of fraud because busy poll workers are unlikely to scrutinize signatures carefully and argue with people who deny having forged someone else's signature. He said the absence of prosecutions is explained by the endemic under-enforcement of minor criminal laws, minor as they appear to the public and prosecutors, and by the extreme difficulty of apprehending a voter impersonator. He enters the polling place, gives a name that's not his own, votes, and leaves. If later it's discovered the name he gave is that of a dead person, no one at the polling place will remember the face of the person who gave the name. And if someone did remember it, what would he do with the information? One response to voting fraud, which has a parallel to littering, another crime the perpetrators of which are almost impossible, the perpetration of which is almost impossible to control, would be to impose a very severe criminal penalty for voting fraud. Another, however, is to take preventative action by requiring a photo ID. Look at the friggin' debate. I can say that word, right, Mr. Producer? Over a damn voter ID. Colin Powell to the rescue. Pandering. All right, you ready for this one? There is no need for a civil rights movement in this country anymore. What did he say? What did he say? Oh, yeah, that's right. Because this is what the civil rights movement has become. There is no need for a civil rights movement anymore. Trying to gin up racial issues over something like a photo ID. Trying to gin up racial issues in a case like the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case. There's no need for this civil rights movement anymore. But the civil rights movement needs to claim racism. Or to take instances of it, and I don't deny there is some, of course. But to take instances of it and claim that it is a societal endemic. When it's not. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This Nidal Hassan, the mass-murdering Islamo-Nazi terrorist, let me just say this. If his sentence is anything short of death, that is a complete miscarriage of justice and an incentive to more of this kind of crap. What else is there to say? And the idea that this has gone on for 3 years, that this piece of excrement has been able to breathe for 3 years, yes, he should be taken out back. Sorry, that's my opinion. He's confessed over and over and over again. There's a zillion witnesses. This is no, we got to take DNA. No, it's not one of those cases. But no, we're a just society. We're a civil society. You see, we torment ourselves. We go through this year after year. Should he wear a beard? Shouldn't he wear a beard? Does he need a lawyer? Doesn't he need a lawyer? He doesn't want a lawyer. But excuse me? Something's wrong, I'll tell you that. Bloomberg News off of the Drudge Report. NSA analysts intentionally abuse spying powers multiple times. Well, wait a minute here. We have the IRS intentionally abusing conservatives. Now we have the NSA intentionally abusing citizens. Gee, what could be going on here? Some NSA analysts deliberately ignored restrictions on their authority to spy on Americans multiple times in the past decade, contradicting Obama administration officials and lawmakers' statements that no willful violations occurred. Now, every damn buffoon on Fox and these other stations who's been defending this program, I want an explanation. Over the past decade, by the way, maybe I should get together with some investors and on DirecTV start a channel too. Just an all-conservative channel. Well, that doesn't mean conservatives are going to agree on everything. But just all the hosts are conservative. Seriously, I'm flirting with this idea. Something I'm thinking about. And by the way, I should mention, if you go to my social sites, what I have attempted to do the last 10 days is every interview I've had, whether it's on video or Skype or TV, and or translated and in written form, or any article that I can find, I have put on my social sites, Mark Levin Show Facebook, Mark Levin Show Twitter. Not because I need you to see every article that's ever been written, but so you can see the arguments, the explanations, and run with them. And also on Mark Levin Show, the website, marklevinshow.com, we have a book page with every single one linked there. This is to provide you with information, argumentation, and so forth. When you purchase the book or you look at it at the library, this is to reinforce what you're looking at and to keep it as easy and concise as possible. So back to the NSA. Over the past decade, very rare instances of willful violations of NSA's authorities have been found, the NSA said in a statement to Bloomberg News. NSA takes very serious blah, blah. But the incidents chronicled in a new report by the NSA's Inspector General provide more evidence that U.S. agencies sometimes have violated legal and administrative restrictions on domestic spying and may add to the pressure to bolster laws that govern intelligence activities. The IG documented an average of one case per year over 10 years of intentionally inappropriate actions by people with access to the NSA's vast electronic surveillance systems. According to an official familiar with the findings, the incidents were minor, the official said, speaking on condition of anonymity. This isn't the point. Minor, major, how many times? The point is that collecting information on the enemy or potential enemies, that's one thing. But collecting a vast store of information on the American people just so you have it handy is absurd. And I've explained the legal and constitutional issues, the practical issues, so often I'm not going to do it again. But the government is quite capable of some very nasty things. I'm not saying walk around paranoid, but the framers of the Constitution, they understood this. Were they paranoid? Well, in some ways they were, weren't they? And correctly so. So the government doesn't well, let me put it this. The government shouldn't be collecting information it doesn't need or information it can get if it needs it, like from private companies. It shouldn't just nationalize private databases and then build massive buildings in Utah and collect them there. I reject it completely. It's not a national security or law enforcement necessity because you can get that information elsewhere. In fact, they did. I just want to point that out. Let's see here. We haven't taken many calls. All right, let's see here. Walter. Isn't the Walker from New York? Walter out of New York, WABC. How are you, Walter?
I'm just fine, Mark. Mark, why don't you're talking about your founding fathers all the time, and you're always doing, the founding fathers never meant people to show up with an ID to vote. The right to vote is given to us by God, Mark. It's not given to us by the state. And everything on the list...
All right, pal, I'm going to educate you, although I can tell you're going to be a tough one to educate. Nobody's trying to deny anybody the right to vote who's a United States citizen. And I will, as part of Landmark Legal Foundation, defend anybody who tries to vote as a United States citizen and somebody stops them, some state or the federal government, for some illegitimate reason, unlike you who will sit there and just pout. What we're talking about is people who don't have a right to vote, who are attacking our franchise and making these and committing fraud. Do you understand the difference, sir?
What I understand...
No, you don't, because you're a dummy. And I could tell it as soon as you got on the phone. I'll be right back.
The one-man antidote for liberal media bias, Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Mark Levin, author of numerous New York Times best-selling books, Men in Black, Liberty and Tyranny, and Ameritopia. Now comes the Liberty Amendments.
This book is what we do, what I do behind this microphone, what we discuss day in and day out. And it answers the question that you ask. Mark, what can we do? Well, this is my answer.
The Liberty Amendments, new from Mark Levin.
When you read this book, The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic, it gives you hope. It gives you some inspiration, and we need it. And that's why I wrote it.
Rush Limbaugh on Mark Levin's The Liberty Amendments.
It's a wonderful book. He proposes 10 amendments that simply reaffirm the original intent of the Constitution and then gives a thorough explanation for why each amendment is in fact justified and traces it back to the days of the founding.
This year's must-read, Mark Levin's The Liberty Amendments, now on sale everywhere.
Must be a slow news day. I'm not seeing anything from Chris Christie out there. And we know that he's all the news that's fit to whatever. Charles, Sunnyvale, California, the great KSFO. Do you know, Charles, that I lived in Sunnyvale, California?
Yeah, I've heard you many times. Yeah, I wish I said I saw you. But
hold on now, slow down. Yep. I lived on a street called Waxwing, right next to Lawrence Expressway, right near a Baskin & Robbins.
That I'm not. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that street now.
And as a matter of fact, my friend, I would make 2 or 3 trips a week to a donut place called Stan's. Have you ever been to Stan's?
No, I heard you talk about it. I meant to try it one time.
Oh, man.
I heard you before.
You live in Sunnyvale and you haven't been to Stan's Donuts?
I'll have to look them up. I keep meaning to.
Look them up. Everybody knows about Stan's. What's wrong with you? If I lived there, I'd screw my diet. I'd be eating those donuts left and right. Go right ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I've been researching this subject of amendment since convention since the 80s when I first got interested as a teenager. And one of the things I've read in my last research was that 32 states currently have applications for the purpose of a convention for the proposal.
Well, they don't currently have applications. They had applications, I believe, in the 60s, maybe the early 70s, when Everett Dirksen, the Republican leader of the Senate, was strongly behind this, pushing it, and they had 32, and then it stopped. Then it unraveled.
as I know. As far as I know, they don't expire. So as far as I know, all we need.
Of course, they expire. They don't last for 50 years.
Well, the 27th Amendment passed after 200 years. The state ratification.
27th Amendment passed after 200 years. All right, thank you for your call. Okay. Okay. A state legislature can't bind another state legislature for half a century. No state legislature is going to accept that. Now, these are interesting discussions, but they're not relevant. And I really don't want to get caught off on these little sidetracks and so forth. The 27th Amendment, we're not talking about an amendment. We're talking about a convention to propose amendments. We haven't gotten to that actual amendment phase yet. Just saying. Adrian, Mississippi, XM Satellite, how are you?
How are you, Mark? Listen,
very well, thank you.
I listened to you on the internet because, you know, the station that I listen to you.
All right, we don't need to get into this, that, or the other. How may I help you?
Let me ask you something. I was an appointee during the Reagan administration. I worked on the campaign staff in 1980. We used to have a Monday Club meeting, and I think I met you at one of those. Stan Evans used to host.
That's right. Club. I would attend those from time to time. Quite right.
Yeah, I think I met you there.
I was the handsome guy there.
Yeah, I was the Taurus.
All right.
Anyway, Stan used to introduce himself as a Pisces or whatever. I can't remember. But anyway.
Well, Stan Evans is a great man. He's an icon in the conservative movement. Go right ahead, my friend.
I knew his dad. His dad was a great man also.
That's amazing.
But Stan and I were very, very close friends back in those days.
All right, we're on a national radio show. We got to keep going. Go right ahead.
Okay. All I wanted to do was back you up when it came to President Reagan. President Reagan worked over Tip O'Neill, and you were absolutely correct. I don't know how these revisionist historians at the Republican National Committee could say that Reagan was a rhino or whatever, because President Reagan would go to the people.
No, this is Stop Brown tonight on Fox saying, would Reagan be called a rhino because he worked with Tip O'Neill? Worked with Tip O'Neill. He worked with him if he had to, but he ran circles around him.
Oh, absolutely. And when Tip O'Neill wouldn't hunt, President Reagan would go to the American people. I mean, they were forced into doing what Reagan wanted to do because he went to the American people.
Well, why do you think these French rhino Republicans keep rewriting history? The reason is because they have to justify their mush. They have to justify the fact that they're unprincipled largely, and they can't decide whether to reject Reagan. Remember, the era of Reagan's over, or to embrace him and to really deceive about what Reagan was and what Reagan did.
Well, they talk about Reagan because Reagan represented real America.
He was the last real successful president, wasn't he?
He was the last real American in that White House.
Well, we can't say that. I mean, we had George H.W. Bush was a war hero, too. But all right, Adrian, thank you for your call, my friend. Got to keep moving. Got to keep moving. I'm sorry. Eddie in Wyoming on Sirius Satellite. Hello, Eddie.
Hi, Mark. What a pleasure and a privilege to speak with you. I just wanted to express, first of all,
thank you, sir.
I had given up on talk radio as much as I loved some of your compatriots. You know, it just seemed like a rehashing of everything. And when I discovered you, it's been so refreshing, and I don't miss it. If I can't listen on the radio, I'm picking up the podcast. So
well, you're very kind. Thank you.
I wanted to just comment on the Fort Hood shooter. Just a thought. While I completely agree with you that there is no punishment which would be severe enough that if anybody deserves the death penalty, he would. But I also know that in his mindset, for him to be a martyr is to set him up as a hero. And to me, would it not be more torturous for him of a punishment to not give him the death penalty, but to do something where he would have to serve the families of those that he
but he'll never do that. But see, here's the problem. They'd wind up giving him a prayer rug, making sure he had the appropriate Islamic diet, whatever that is. They would, they'd bend over backwards to take care of them as they do in Guantanamo Bay. We'd have tennis courts and ping pong and proper lighting for reading and all the rest of that crap.
Understand? It just, I hate to turn.
They got plenty of martyrs in their own perverse minds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you again, Mark.
Now, wait a minute. I have a question to ask you. You're Wyoming. How's it going there with the Senate primary race out there?
I've not been in the state. I'm a traveling musician. I've not been there.
Oh, okay.
But
traveling musician? Well, let me ask you that. Tell me what that means.
Well, I've been on the road for years, and in the studio and on the road with different music groups of every description in the world, from various Christian music groups to working with a guy named James Burton that played guitar with Elvis, and so a lot of different people over the years, from Dolly Parton to Dr. John. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm just kind of out on my own doing some private receptions this week in Tennessee. So
what do you play? I guess the guitar?
I'm a keyboard guy.
Keyboard?
Yes, sir.
That's really cool. Well, I wish you all the best, and thanks for listening, bro. All right, you take care. Great people listen to this program. You people are just magnificent. I always want to learn more about you, who you are, and what you do. Let's go to Pablo, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on the great Mark Levin app, the best app in America. If you don't have the Mark Levin app, it's free. You download it for free. You go to my website, the greatest website in America, MarkLevinShow.com. Pablo, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thank you very much. I need to tell you, I'd never heard listen your show before, but I had to buy your book, and I got it on the iPad. And yesterday, actually the day before yesterday, I flew back from Europe. It was 8 hours on the plane. I couldn't put your book down. I finished it. And when I landed yesterday, I bought in Amazon 10 copies that I sent to friends of mine. This is extraordinary. You can hear that I have an accent. I'm originally from Argentina. I'm a proud American of 25 years
Let me slow you down. I want people to understand. Argentina, at the beginning of the last century, was the second wealthiest nation on the face of the earth behind the United States. Look what these socialist communists have done to that great country. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You said it, Mark. No, don't be sorry. That's exactly the point. That I come from a country that was a socialist. Still is, of course. And I ran away from there because it was so oppressing and it was tyrannic. I mean, when I was going to kindergarten in Argentina, we were asked to dance and sing songs of praise to Evita Perón. So when I see that in schools here, they were singing songs to Obama, the hair gets up in the back of my head. And because that is all sound. I mean, it brings echoes of a terrible, terrible time in my life when my parents, until Perón was fell, they couldn't tell me and admit to me that they hated Perón because he was a tyrant. There was a society planner, social engineering, like all the socialists in the world, because they were afraid that I would say, tell about them in school, and they would be in trouble. They could go to jail.
Right.
The problem that we have, Mark, and that you have explaining to America what is happening with Obama and with socialists is that most Americans don't really know anything about socialism and don't imagine that is a possibility. It's not, for many, a question of being naive. It's arrogance. They believe we are so good, we are so superior, and I include myself in American because I'm extremely proud to be an American. It's the thing that I'm the most proud in my life, of course. That cannot happen to us. I have liberal friends.
Don't be mad at me. I got 30 seconds to a hard break.
Okay.
Well, let me say this to you, Pablo. Call back next week because this is very compelling to me. And you know what, Mr. Call Screener, get Pablo's number. I want to talk to you on Monday too, Pablo. I've got to go, but it's near the end of the program. But you fascinate me, and I want to thank you very much. So don't hang up. Folks, Ancestry.com, it's hard to find all the details of your family story. Documents get misplaced, relatives mix up dates, or may no longer be here to share their stories. That's why I use TryAncestry.com to uncover these missing details. And with TryAncestry.com, I found the date my great-grandfather arrived in New York, the name of his ship, and the length of his voyage to the new life in America. These are details we didn't know, but were able to find at TryAncestry.com. I want you to go to TryAncestry.com, see what you can discover for 14 days free. And while you're there, you need to check out Ancestry DNA. It's at its lowest price ever, and the results will amaze you. I did it. I love the detail on where my ancestors once lived and the continuous updates I get for free along the way. Matter of fact, even during this program. Visit TryAncestry.com and start your 14 days free and order your Ancestry DNA kit today while the price is at its lowest. Visit TryAncestry.com. That's TryAncestry.com.
Mark Levin.
I want to thank all of you who listen to this program every day. I want to thank all of you who are getting a copy of this book, you Paul and Paulette Reveres who can help us. This weekend is the perfect time to get it. I want to thank all the bloggers and websites, all the news outlets, my buddy Drudge. I want to thank my fellow talk show hosts. I want to thank the Fox News Channel. You've all been absolutely wonderful. If I've left somebody out, I apologize. But this is a crucial time in American history, and it's a very, very important time to inform ourselves of our most important option. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try and do it in the most interesting, entertaining, compelling way possible. And I want you folks to remember, Barnes & Noble, tomorrow, Saturday, 10 a.m., Tyson's Corner, Virginia. I'm partnering with WMAL, so I want to encourage as many people to come out as possible. This is the next to last book signing. There will be no more. Barnes & Noble, 10 a.m. Saturday tomorrow, Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Now, all of you, Ray Charles in America.
Oh, beautiful, far heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, make God thy gold refined, till all success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain majesties, above the fruited plain. But now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good. Yes, he did. Every brotherhood. From sea to shining sea. Oh, Lord, I thank you, Lord.
That's it. The week is officially over. The weekend begins right now. And by the way, the federal government's closed. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. And you, my fellow patriots, some of whom I hope to see tomorrow, 10 a.m., Barnes & Noble, Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Good night, Spritey. Good night, Griffey. Good night, Pepsi. And good night, America.